New numbers have been released by the Louisiana Department of Health. Officials say there are now 114 cases of coronavirus in Louisiana. 79 of those are in Orleans Parish. 2 patients in Orleans Parish have died. In a press conference yesterday, officials said the rate of infection is spreading faster in New Orleans than in many other cities. And breaking news, this is some positive news regarding the coronavirus. U.S. researchers in Seattle have given a healthy volunteer the first shot of an experimental vaccine. Today's milestone is just a first step in a long process, and we should add that experts say it'll be at least a year before any would be ready for use on a wide basis, but that is good news.